ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you?
It's time to flip a coin and find out.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
We're calling it to see who's got the best sports knowledge here on the Coin Flip with Martin Kelly
and Jacob Zimmerman.
Flip it again. Back for Week 14 in the NFL. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly here in the Coin Flip podcast. Ready to break down another week in the NFL and, of course, give our predictions for the upcoming contest in the National Football League. Can't wait to do this. Records on screen from the week prior. Martin has won his fourth straight week in a row, and he is gaining on me inch by inch as we continue to do these. We've picked now close to 200 games on the complete schedule throughout the entire season, outright money line, straight up style picks. We do kind of give some spread picks here and there, but on screen are correct picks, are incorrect picks there with the zero. Martin, let's kind of run through these, but of course the obvious, you are now 5 games back of me, Martin. Entering week 10, you were down 14 games, I believe. Now you're down just 5 games to me. Martin Kelly, how's it going? And what'd you think of week 13?
I'm not doing too bad. Another average is about 45 degrees up here in Salt Lake City, so we haven't gotten hit with the formidable freezing cold that we know will be coming in January and February very soon. You mentioned the wins. You mentioned that I've caught up to you. I appreciate that acknowledgement. I started off the season a little bit rough. I had to work my way back to catch up with you, and I will admit I've been studying more and been putting more effort into it, so I'm happy that the work has paid off. Week 13 was a fun week. It was an interesting week. Obviously, the last 2 games of the night of the schedule, I shall say, were the interesting ones. Obviously, the Southern Canada beating the Kansas City Chiefs, and somehow the Cincinnati Bengals with Jake Browning coming out of nowhere, upsetting the injured Trevor Lawrence Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday night in overtime. Upsetting the fact that I could have had 12 wins this week. But overall, in just the week, there was a lot of fun games. There was a lot of decently competitive games, but past the morning games, the afternoon games were kind of boring. Not a whole lot of scoring until the very end. Obviously, the Niners-Eagles game got out of hand after halftime. The potential fights between Greenwood and the security for Philly. There was a few fun games, a few boring games. It was a bit of an up-and-down weekend, but nonetheless, another week in the NFL is over, and let's just get on to next week and let's see how we do.
Another huge week for the betting favorites, of course. A lot of outright wins there, but Jacksonville almost reversed the trend because they were a 10-point favorite, the biggest favorite of the entire week, actually, and they end up losing in overtime. Now, you can argue Trevor Lawrence is healthy there in OT, the rest of the fourth quarter, they pull it out, but you got to be a good enough team in today's day and age, in 2023, late in the regular season, to have a backup that's somewhat capable out there to lead you to victory, tied in a ball game with a team that's not quite as good. Instead, it was the Bengals side who did exactly what Jacksonville missed out on. Jake Browning was atop Mahomes Mountain from Nick Wright on First Things First. Kind of a troll there to say Jake Browning the best quarterback right now in the NFL. But nevertheless, speaking of Mahomes, the Packers, another big upset there on Sunday night, 27-17. Kansas City, can't even cover the spread. The Packers covered the spread. If you flipped it around, Martin, they won almost in convincing fashion, getting it done at the end. And when the Chiefs offense is not rolling like that, that's when the Packers are going to clean up Kansas City. The Chiefs have not looked like they have in the early goings of the season, or even last year when they were even better and won the Super Bowl. And of course, going back to Tyreek Hill, they really miss him, Martin, from 2 years ago. Other games that kind of stuck out to me, some big blowouts. 49ers, of course, against the Eagles in that 4 o'clock window, Martin. They wiped them left, right, and center. Brock Purdy is the MVP betting favorite. That I disagree with, but we can still say right now that Brock Purdy is playing top 5 quarterback football. Is he that in reality? That's up for debate. We don't know. But right now, with everything he's got around him, of course, he's putting up great numbers, and we got to give him his flowers and respect for that. Some stink fests in here. The Chargers and the Patriots. Yuck. That one, Martin, this happens to me almost every week. I'm watching Red Zone, and I'm like, where's that one game? Often that one game is the Panthers game, Martin. This week, one of those games was the Patriots and the Chargers game. And it's because you realize, they're never actually close to the red zone. They're just punting back and forth. So, that's kind of an average week. You have some upsets here and there. The favorites, will rule. Normally you have more underdogs winning outright. But nevertheless, Martin, a good week in the NFL. And I'm excited because the stakes are starting to raise. We've done predictions, all season long. But the stakes now are seemingly going to be high. Martin, before we get into Week 14 and our predictions, and if you have anything else to say about Week 13, you can chime in. But, Martin, I wanted to kind of respond to comments that we have gotten on our college football posts. If you didn't catch that, you can go back to 2 days ago where we posted, a conversation about Florida State, Alabama, Michigan, all the teams that were in the college football playoff controversy, and we had 2 comments. I responded to them, but I just wanted to read them here kind of on the podcast. Brian disagrees that Alabama is going to beat Michigan. He thinks Alabama's going to beat Michigan. I said they weren't. Martin, you said they were, so you and Brian are in agreement there. And then No Way Jose 1313, if only that Georgia FSU game would actually mean anything. It's a shame. It's a shame. I agree. I agree with that, Martin. If only they could, my response was, if only they could find a way to arrange the TV deals in a way, last second emergency, we're going to do 6 teams instead. We can all dream, but it won't happen. Martin, your comments on that?
We wish we could have had Florida State. I think that game would have been fun if Jordan Travis was healthy, because I really would have put some serious money on Florida State upsetting Georgia with the lack of offense that Georgia brought to the SEC title game. Alabama, Michigan, I said it on the podcast, Alabama's going to win it all. I just know it. We said it on the podcast, and I still believe it. The SEC commission, the commissioner, the committee members, whoever is part of the SEC, all broke into the committee's office, made them all sit there and say, you're going to take the SEC title winner, and there's no exception to this, period, end of story. And Florida State was banging on the door saying, no. They were trying to make them change their mind. They were trying to pull any money they could to change all their minds. The SEC bribed the committee enough that they made them take the SEC winner, and Florida State is unfortunately going to play in a game that will be fun versus Georgia. I still believe Georgia will win this game now that they don't have their starting quarterback, but this is just about money, and you can't leave an SEC team out of the national championship. Playoffs is in their contracts. They're not allowed to do it, and so Alabama's in.
Hard to fault people for wanting to make money indeed, Martin. Without further ado, that's a Week 13 reaction. That's a response to some of our comments on the last video. That's our season-long predictions, and of course, Martin winning 4 weeks in a row. Martin, but that's going to change this week here in Week 14. Let's get into our predictions. Starting off, Patriots go to the Steel City, where they're a 6-point favorite. Martin, is anybody going to pick the Steelers to win outright anytime soon?
I'm going to pick the Steelers to win this game. This is, you're looking at this schedule. If this game was 3-4 years ago with Roethlisberger and Tom Brady, this would have been like one of the most like star-studded games you wanted to watch. And sadly, this will be the most boring game. This is going to be even more boring than the Panthers and Saints later in the week. No offense to the Panthers and Saints, but that's just going to be a low-scoring game too. I'm taking the Steelers, Steel City. They'll put up enough points. The Patriots can't score. Ramon Stevenson is possibly not even going to play, so they lose running there. I don't trust Ezekiel Elliott to do enough on the system to help the Patriots score. No matter who's at quarterback for the Patriots, Steelers will win.
Yeah, it's crazy that we are getting to this conclusion with these two teams. I mean, Martin, you kind of nailed it. You kind of rubbing more salt in the wounds for both of these major brand franchises in the NFL. Two massive, massive fan bases. I know a couple of Steelers fans. I know a Patriots fan or two as well. Everybody has kind of met one, but yeah, this is a classic game where you look at it and you smash the under almost no matter what the number is, Martin. 6 points there for the Steelers. I can see the Patriots, closing that margin, but yeah, it's tough to pick the Pats here outright. I'm going to go with the Steelers as well. I think, they still have the running game intact. They got a two-headed monster of Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. And, as long as one of those guys is healthy in a game like this, Pickens is on the outside. He's the best playmaker in this game overall, especially in the pass game. Martin, I think the Steelers have enough. You never could rule out a Patriots, fumble return touchdown, a pick six, a special teams touchdown, although the special teams for New England has not been to their standard. But Martin, that's going to be 2 in a row for the Steelers. On now to next game on our schedule. It's not Bus, it's the Bucks and the Falcons. Another crapshoot in the NFC South. Who do you got?
When it comes to the NFC left division, I don't know what's going on with this division this season. I think everyone's just playing hot potato, saying, no, you take the division. No, you take the division. No, you take the division. And the Panthers are just standing around like monkey in the middle, like, come on, give it to me. I'm taking the Falcons in this one. They're at home. The Bucks have really struggled to score a good amount of points in the last few weeks. Yes, they got the win over the Panthers, but it took them 3.5 quarters to get past 14 points. I mean, seriously, like, how could you sit there in a stadium and watch a 10-7 game for 3.5 quarters? I would have left at halftime and just been like, give me my money back. Like, seriously. Arthur Smith has not figured out how to utilize both Bijan, Drake Allen, or Kyle Pitts at all this season. But the Falcons defensively are better. The Bucks have their defense coming back. But the Falcons are just a better team. They've been the better team at home. Their last home game, yes, was a loss to the Vikings. But the Bucks have been a terrible road team this year. And I don't have any faith in Baker Mayfield can pull off another road win at all this season. I'm taking the Falcons.
Ooh, the Falcons are a tough take, Martin. They're a tough take. I think Arthur Smith had gotten some credit in the last week or two. 2 weeks in a row getting dubs against the Saints by 9, the Jets, in New York, kind of a disgusting 13-8 close game there, but they have the better skill set, especially offensively. Baker's Bucks started out, I think it was 3-1, and now they're 5-7. So they've lost 6 out of their last 8 or so. It's trending Falcons. It is trending Falcons. So it's really tough to take them. I don't like the Taylor Heineke this game, Desmond Ridder this game. I don't like that, but we're gonna find out what happens. It almost doesn't matter who the Falcons have back there at QB. So based off that, you could say Atlanta's defense is really underrated too. Especially when they win, their defense really performs. So Martin, I would say if Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, if they catch a lead in the first half, if they put up like 10 points in the first half and they're up, I think they'll hold on. I don't think the Falcons can play from behind, but if Atlanta, keeps this really low scoring, if they're in it the whole way, I think they'll find a way to close it out. So I'm going to go with ATL as well. On to Indianapolis and the Bengals. Both teams right now overperforming due to expectations. Both teams with injured starting quarterbacks. This is, of course, going to be Browning and his opportunity to win 2 in a row as underdog. So, Martin, who do you got?
This game is one of the tricky games to pick this week, Jacob. And I'm not saying that to boost up their fan bases, but you have a team in the Colts that have won games off of luck back-to-back weeks. The Colts defense came up with a tough couple of sacks and strip sacks against the Bucks, against Baker Mayfield at home, and then they went on the road. And one miracle catch by Alex Pierce put the Indianapolis Colts over and got them the win against Tennessee Titans. You got to give the Titans credit for playing pretty tough and playing competitive in that game until overtime. I can't say no to the Colts. I have to ride this streak. I have to see how far they go. I'm taking Indy only because Indy to me feels like maybe a more team on the rise competing for playoffs. The Bengals feel like a team that are just trying to get through their season. Jamar Chase won't let them go down easily and will give Jake Browning all the confidence that he can to make sure that he can stay competitive. But I'm taking the Colts in this one. If their defense can get to him and disrupt Browning, and as long as Minshew doesn't put the ball in trouble, I think they can win this game. On top of that, the Colts have won 2 of their 3 last road games. Yes, they were versus bad teams, but this is against a bad quarterback. I think it's in Indianapolis' favor.
Martin, I'm starting to feel like an idiot picking against the Colts, but I think I'm going to do it again. They are finding ways to win. That is just unbelievable, Martin. An overtime win, at your division rival who's kind of had, the upper hand, who's kind of, rubbed it in your face on the ground for the last couple of years with Derrick Henry. You win in overtime. You go back, you win at home. 2 close games, you pull them out, you get that close game experience once again. Tampa Bay and New England. You go on the road to a poor Carolina team. You beat them by multiple scores. So Indianapolis is on a streak right now, Mark. But I think that 4-game winning streak comes to an end. If Indianapolis won 5 games in a row with this team, I mean, you got to start looking at that coaching staff and say, man, one of those guys is going to get a big contract, either go somewhere else or stay put and, continue to build it up. But I'm going to go with the Bengals, Martin, because I was looking at that injury report. And Joe Burrow's out, yes. But compared to the other teams, the Bengals only have 5 guys on the injury report. And that's shockingly less than the vast majority of the rest of the NFL, Martin. So I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals here as I just hit the timer. I think Browning, he's going to be able to get it done. He went off last week, and I think that kind of says that, backup quarterbacks play well. Backup quarterbacks don't often, have near a perfect passer rating when they play out there, Martin. So maybe Jake Browning gets a starting job next year, but the Colts have 2 injured D linemen on that IR. I believe it's the IR. So, I'm going to go with the Bengals. Jags and the Browns. Perhaps Trevor Lawrence is back on time. We don't know. Cleveland's the favorite for now, however, -3.
Yeah, Jacksonville is trying to play down this injury. I don't care who you are. Trevor Lawrence is not going to be out there, and if he was, he's going to be in severe pain. Listen, Jacob, you and I have had both. I've had a high ankle sprain injury before. I know you've had a high ankle sprain injury before playing basketball. Coming down, you land on someone's feet, and you're just a victim of the moment as you watch your ankle bend to a side that really, really hurts. LeBron James has gone through that in the NBA, and we saw how long he sat out for just one high ankle sprain. Everyone points towards Patrick Mahomes and last season, but that was in the playoffs. You had to play through injury if you want to win a Super Bowl. I know the Jags are playing for a division title after the loss. CJ Beathard versus Joe Flacco. The only reason why I'm taking the Browns is because they're undefeated at home. The Jags are undefeated on the road. So you have one team that's got to come in with one blemish after the game. Yes, Amari Cooper is injured. He has a concussion. There's a possibility he won't play. But for the majority of the Browns offense, they will be there this week. I have no faith in CJ Beathard will be able to get the ball out. I know the Jags defense is good, but this Jags offense is going to really miss Trevor Lawrence. And even if Trevor Lawrence was out there on an injury, I have no faith that he'd be at 100%, even close to 50%. I'm going to take the Browns at home. I still believe in their home record. I think they're going to get their 7th win at home.
I feel like Martin and I's opinions are starting to agree a little bit more and more as the season has gone on. Martin, you hit this one absolutely on the head once again, with the hammer a couple times. Trevor Lawrence, I don't think he's going to play. I think he'll at least miss 1 week, but this isn't going to be something that takes him out for the rest of the regular season. He'll be back. He'll come to save my fantasy team in time for the playoffs, Martin. I'm speaking it into existence, but nevertheless, take a brief second to remember what the Jags were like before Trevor Lawrence got there. Now, all right, stop. That's enough PTSD. So we're just going to cut that out. But, yeah, Jacksonville, Martin, they're not going to win this game. They're not going to. Joe Flacco looked surprisingly decent last week. You don't have to do a whole lot out there for Cleveland. They got Amari Cooper, who's still there. They got, Ford at running back. You can plug almost any running back into this Cleveland system. That O-line is underrated in the run game, at least. I know they have, injured quarterbacks, so that doesn't really help their pass blocking. But, Martin, I'm going to go with the Browns in their stellar defense. CJ, whatever the heck his name is, it's not Stroud. It's not going to be enough at quarterback. This entire Jags, it's like half the Jags roster here is listed in some way, sort of fashion. There's a ton of guys who are questionable, Martin. Yeah. We're going to go with the Browns here on this one. Maybe even -3 as well. Take the spread early before it changes. So, on to the Texans and the Jets. Houston -3.5.
The way I wanted to start this one, Jacob, is let's go back to week 1 when we all saw CJ Stroud undeniably have his worst game of his entire early career at Baltimore, getting destroyed by the Baltimore Ravens and not having a lick of a chance to even get the ball out. He fumbled it twice. He just looked miserably terrible out there. And now speed through the season to where we are now. He's in the MVP conversation. He pulled up an upset win over the Denver Broncos were on a 4-game win streak. He pulled off an upset win over the Cincinnati Bengals this season. He's thrown for less than 5 interceptions this year. He's on a roll with his QBR rating. He's on a roll with his passing rating. He's on a roll with his touchdown rating. He is on a roll and proving that Ohio State quarterbacks are not the problem. It is just who you play for. And, of course, that's a category for a lot of those Ohio State quarterbacks. The Jets have no one at quarterback. Zach Wilson said, no, I'm not going back out there getting killed because you want to push me out there and try to save the season before Aaron Rodgers comes back. And we all know he's not coming back. Aaron Rodgers has said it himself, and Robert Saleh has said it himself. He's not coming back this season, regardless of his progress. So you have either Brett Rippon or I forget the next kid who's going to be starting the quarterback for this week for the Jets. Whoever that is will suck. The Texans are going to roll over them. They're going to win this game. The Texans are on a roll. They might win this division now after we all picked them not to. The Houston Texans and CJ Stroud are on a major roll, and they're proving the entire NFL that week 1 was nothing and that this week matters more on where we're at now. I'm impressed with CJ Stroud. Give me the Texans.
And give me the spread, Martin. This is another confident pick. I think back-to-back. Really agreeing with the Texans here. It's going to be Zach Wilson. They announced him as the starter, even with some early controversy this week about how there was some reports of him not wanting to go back into the starting lineup. Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee and kind of put that to rest and kind of attacked the media a little bit. Said reporters shouldn't be attacking players' characters. However you see Rodgers. loads of, polarizing opinions on him. Let's just focus on what Zach Wilson has to do this week for the Texans. And Robert Saleh can go out there and lay the game plan for him. The quarterback coach can point all the fingers in the room. Aaron Rodgers can whisper some advice to him, slide him some mysterious substances. And at the end of the day, this is not going to be a shit that Zach Wilson can save. And I don't. It's as if everybody forgot, what happened with Zach Wilson the year prior. And we've discovered this story already. Stop acting like Zach Wilson is letting you down again when he already proved that he's not up to par to play in New York. So, yeah, CJ Stroud, the Texans all day. Take him now, take him early. On to the Rams and the Ravens here on the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. Drop a comment down below of which team you like the most to win this week, and we will respond to you in the comments in next week's video. Texans, Jets, that's our pick there. Rams and Ravens, Baltimore's favored by a touchdown.
Yeah, Baltimore's favored by a touchdown. Not a bad pick here. I've agreed with some of the predictors this week. They said that this will be the closest contest for the Ravens coming off a bye. John Harbaugh is 12-3 off a bye week. Lamar Jackson has a winning record off a bye week. They possibly will get Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr.'s back this week, so that will be addition to the offense with Mark Andrews. The Rams will have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua minus Puka's minor injury he had last week. Congratulations to Puka on breaking the rookie all-time, all-time yardage, over 1,000 yards. Congratulations to him. As much as the Rams are competitive, I'm still going to take the Ravens. The Ravens are a better team against NFC teams. Lamar Jackson's got a winning record against them. They're at home. They got a winning record at home. I'll take the Ravens in a very tough, close matchup. I don't think this will be a touchdown win. I think this will be around 3 or 4 points.
Martin taking the Baltimore Ravens here. I think Baltimore understands well in their head that this is a kind of a must-win game for them if they want to prevent the Chiefs or any other team from taking what could be their number one seed in the AFC. And for Baltimore, that is absolutely as big of an advantage, as crucial to a team like them as it could be for any team in the AFC. Martin, I think I'm going to take the Rams here. They're on fire. They've won their last 3. I get that Baltimore's won 4 of their last 5, but Martino, look at some of these scores here. The last 2 weeks, Arizona with Kyler Murray, that win looks a whole lot better with Arizona, picking up some steam as of late. They won 37-14. And Cleveland, whose defense has been amazing, you hang 36 on them, and Puka had 100 yards in the first half before he was out the game. Now, I'll speak on Puka. Of course, I was his high school teammate. I was the guy who had to guard this man in practice. Martin, when you are the engine of one of the best teams in state history, you're going to take a lot of nicks and knacks and bruising and stuff like that kind of throughout the season. While he's added a ton of weight, since he was a high school football player, and his toughness has probably gone, through the roof. Martin, in the NFL, it's high-speed collisions. It's car crash after car crash out there on the gridiron, on the turf, not the grass, for crying out loud. So, wishing Puka the best, hoping he's out there, for his sake, for my fantasy team's sake. I'm going to go with the Rams. I think Stafford is maybe going to find a little bit of a groove, and, let's not underestimate Sean McVay. If the Rams get into the playoffs, Martin, McVay's got to be in the running for Coach of the Year, somewhere in the running. So I'm going to go with the Rams. You picked the Ravens. On to the Lions and the Bears.
Yeah, not going to make this very long at all. Though I want to pick the Bears. I won't pick the Bears. This is another week I will not pick the Bears. I'm off the Bears for the rest of the year. The Lions will win. They're the better team. The question I have with the Lions is, did they actually prepare I mean, the last time the Lions did not prepare, they lost to Southern Canada and let them ruin my Thanksgiving morning, which I was not very happy about at all. Um, um, I trust the Lions to put up a lot of points. They will play against a good, tough Bears defense that they saw a couple weeks ago that they had to come back to win against. Even though the Bears played well in that game late, they didn't play well enough to win. I believe the Lions will wake up and realize that their NFC division champs are not a walkover anymore. And I think this week they'll actually be prepared to beat the Bears. Yeah, give me the Lions. And for the first time in my life, Jacob, I'm rooting for my grandfather's team, not for my own team. And that's a very, very, very sad day in my life.
Well, I will say that, Martin, it might suck for you to see the Lions be good, especially right now over the Bears. You can appreciate a team like the Lions or a team like the Bengals, you know, who for so many decades have either been mid or, really atrocious. And then over the last couple of years, they've had a really good season or so. So, that just shows the Bears will have a good season at some point, Martin. It'll happen at some point. As for why Detroit is only favored by a field goal and a half, I don't understand that. I think Detroit's going to run away with this. Jared Goff, I don't see him on the injury report, Martin. So I think the Lions are going to do what the Lions do, and they're going to cover the spread. And something I've learned, whether you bet or not, it doesn't even really matter. It's just kind of intriguing to realize how much some of these predictions change according to the odds makers throughout the week. Like, Martin, some of these spreads will change by a point and a half or even two, and you kind of look back and it's like, man, the original spread was 6 in that Chargers Patriots game, and that was actually the final score, 6-0. But they ended up moving it. Go ahead and hop on it early for the Lions and the Bears. On now to the Panthers and the Saints.
Yeah, I won't make this one long either. Jacob, I don't know if it was just because of the rain or the conditions, but I will admit that Carolina's defense was good for a time in that game against the Bucks. Maybe it was just against the Bucks. But, I'll give the Panthers defense credit this year. They haven't been abysmal, but they've been very well competitive. I'll give them that. The offense is a different story, and I think they're still going through their struggles with Bryce Young and all that whatnot. Hopefully, Brian Burns will keep his head together and won't get kicked out of the game. Unfortunate that he did that. I get, frustrations and all that get ahead of you, but can't do that in front of the officials. They'll always get the secondary guy. They'll never get the first guy ever. They never do. The Saints are not a great team either, but the Saints will put up more points. The Saints will get the win. I know Derek Carr is a possibility. Taysom Hill might play a quarterback, so there's going to be a quarterback roulette for New Orleans this week. That might be a thing for Carolina to take advantage of, but still, Carolina struggles to score points. Give me the Saints in an ugly win, and I don't get it with the Saints. They should be better than this, but then again, I think we have finally seen what Derek Carr is, and I guess Las Vegas was right than the rest of us.
Well, I don't think Derek Carr is playing right now or at any point this season like he did, 4 years ago in Las Vegas with the Raiders. I don't think he's on the same level as he used to. I think there's been some depreciation, whatever word you want to say he's gotten worse. Martin, Taysom Hill was getting cheered by fans, and Derek Carr was getting booed. This is the same Derek Carr who, Martin, if I remember correctly, wasn't he in the preseason like borderline crying because of how well he and his wife had gotten received? Am I missing? Is that what happened, or am I mixing up that story?
No, you're not. No, you're not mixing up that story. There was praise when he came in, and they have finally found out what he is, and so they don't like him anymore.
tough. That seems to be kind of the life of the average NFC South quarterback over the last couple of years. But yeah, Martin, the Panthers, real quick on the Panthers continue to kind of not make the right decision in the front office when it's time to do so. I'm circling back to the decision not to trade Brian Burns. Brian Burns is great. I would love to have him. Any fan base would love to have this guy on, their team. When healthy, top 10 easily pass rusher in the NFL. Go watch the games, go watch the highlights. He's that good. Brian Burns is the best player overall on the Panthers, and yet we're still 1-11. And we could have traded him for 2 first-round picks from, I believe, the Rams. If you're going to be bad, at least have a lot of draft capital upcoming. Martin, I've said this before on the podcast. If the Panthers have a 1-win season, that's the worst season in NFL history because you don't get your pick. And you missed out on a lot of good deals that you could have had. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Saints here. Completely irrelevant to the actual game. Taysom Hill could be the starter for every snap, and the Saints will still beat my Carolina Panthers. Vikings and Raiders. The Raiders are an underdog against Minnesota, who's, of course, still without Kirk Cousins, unless he wants to try to go back out there with one Achilles attached like Aaron Rodgers.
No, he's not going to do that. Reports already come down the pipe. Joshua Dobbs will start. Justin Jefferson will start. So Jay Jetta is back after missing, I think it's been like since week 6 he's been out. He's been out for a while with a hamstring injury, and that's always something you got to take very, very careful of. I'll take the Vikings in this one. As much as I believe in the Raiders, if their Vikings blitz defense can get to Aiden O'Connell and disrupt him enough, they won't be able to get the ball out. As long as Dobbs doesn't put the ball in bad positions like he did against Chicago, they will win this game. Jordan Addison will get less double coverage, so he'll get man-to-man. Jay Jetta will get all the double, triple coverage, so it might open the door for Hawkinson and for Jordan Addison to have some good games. As long as they can find a way to run the ball, Matthewson is a good runner. Just got to give him the ball. Then the Vikings will win this game in Vegas. I want to give the Raiders a chance, but not this week.
Martin, the Raiders are finding out that Antonio Pierce is not some mastermind offensively. They, of course, put up 30 points. They won by 24 against the Giants. Remember, back to win, the whole Josh McDaniels saga. That's finally over in LV. Martin, since that victory against New York, they've put up 16, 13, and 17. They're 1-2 in those games. Now, you just lost to Miami and Kansas City, but I think the Vikings are going to pull this one out. The Vikings have way more to play for. The Raiders' playoffs hopes are done. There's no way that you put a lie detector test to Devontae Adams right now that he thinks this team has any shot of creeping back into the postseason. There's just no way. Same thing with Josh Jacobs. I get it. NFL players are, they may be delusional at some points, but yeah, this locker room had a little spark. Get it? Spark. They kind of sparked in the locker room there. Legal though. And then Vikings. So the Vikings are going to get it done, Markin. They're going to get it done. Josh Dobbs, the Dobb father. He kind of regressed back to a backup quarterback as of lately, but I sense another big game coming from him. So we're both going with Minnesota. On now to the Seahawks and the Niners.
Yeah, Seahawks, Niners. I learned from my lesson last time. Give me Niners. I should have thought about it twice before I picked them for Thanksgiving, but I didn't learn my lesson then, so I shall learn my lesson now. Not going to mess around with this. Niners will win it. They're the best team in the NFL.
Best team in the NFL right now, you have to agree. You have to agree, especially after what they just did to Philadelphia. The Seahawks have a lot of film, on the Niners, Martin, but I don't know if a lot of film is going to be enough. They just played each other not too long ago in Seattle, and George Kittle ran on out of there pretty happy. 31-13. Could the margin be even bigger this week? I don't know. I think that 10.5 might be a lock as well, Martin. So 49ers from me and Martino indeed. Wasting no more time there. Let's on now to the Bills and the Chiefs, Martin. Big brand on big brand.
Yeah, big brand on big brand. I think these few next games on the schedule, Jacob, I feel like we're going to go back and forth and have some differences. So this will lead to an interesting record after this week. I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm taking the Chiefs at home. The Bills have so many distractions right now and so many problems in their locker room. I told you when they played against the Bills that they were basically done. There's not enough water put out the hot blazing fire that is burning up their locker room. Stephon Diggs hates Josh Allen. He wants out. I know he does. He doesn't have to say it. Von Miller and his domestic issue off the field. I feel like Sean McDermott has finally lost the locker room. They don't have a running game at all. There's so much incompleteness with this Bills team that I can't trust them to go on the road and try to pull an upset win on a Chiefs team that on paper they should beat. They are on paper right now a far better team. The Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill. They don't have a serious running game. They don't have anybody else besides Travis Kelce to throw the ball to. They have a solid defense, but they keep getting flagged. Snead is the highest flagged corner in the NFL. The last time the Chiefs were at home, they lost to the Eagles in a game they should have won. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I can still see those drops in my head, and including last week. I can't choose the Bills because everything off the field is leading to problems on the field, and I got to choose the Chiefs even though they're the weaker team because they're at home and they're a better team at home than they are on the road. Give me the Chiefs in this kind of ugly game that I think is going to go down.
This is a massive game. A massive game. Last week against Green Bay. All right, you're thinking, all right, this is a team that Kansas City can beat. Taylor Swift was at the game, Martin. When Taylor Swift is at the game, Travis Kelce goes off. And it normally leads to wins. This time, that did not happen. That did not happen. And while I need Travis Kelce to do well on my fantasy team, I think I'm going to need the Chiefs to do well as well this week for my pick to be correct, because I'm going to go with Kansas City as well, Martin. They are at home. I think that's massive for them. That might be what decides this game, according to the odds makers. You know, if they had to choose, they would agree as well. 1.5-point favorite at home. The Bills, coming off of, what would you call it last week, Martin? Quite a game. 37-34 loss to Philly. As close as it gets. You know, heartbreaker there at the end. Martin, with Mahomes, Kansas City has only lost 2 times in a row. In 2018 once, in 2019 once, and 2021 once. And they haven't lost 3 in a row since 2017, Mahomes' rookie season. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well. It's not a super confident pick. I don't think you could be super confident, you know, in this type of game, you know, given what the Bills have at stake. But the Chiefs maybe have that kind of stake as well because they're going to need to play an Arrowhead, I think, if they want to win this Super Bowl this season. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well. Broncos and Chargers, LA -3.
I'm going to take the Chargers. You know, sorry. I said Chargers. I apologize. I'm taking the Broncos. I am 100% behind the Broncos. Broncos. It was uncharacteristic how the Broncos played last week. They let Houston get into their head. Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions. That's the only second time he's done that in his Broncos history. He did that the season before in a major blowout loss to the Rams. We all remember that ugly win. by the Rams. That was just bad. I know the Chargers are at home, but the Chargers are done to me. I know they got the win over the Patriots, but that's over the Patriots. And I still don't understand why Staley's got a job. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe he has something on the Spanos. I could believe that. But I'm taking the Broncos. The Broncos are the better, more complete team. Yes, they'll miss Patrick Surtain. There's a possibility he won't play. He did get banged up versus the Texans, so that might lead to some issues. But I think when it comes to this very close game, I think the Broncos will do enough to win. The Chargers will hand another loss and will break the hearts of their fans once again. It's been their tradition for years on out. Give me the Chargers. It's Broncos. I apologize.
Well, I think as Martin trolls the San Diego
No trolling. No trolling.
San Diego Chargers fan base. He's trolling them. Martin, looking at the battle here between QBs is what can often decide the games. Russell Wilson, completes his passes out there. They're never for a bunch of yards. Now I get it. The touchdown, to interception ratio is, as good as ever. But so is Herbert's, 20-6. I'm gonna go with the Chargers here in this one, Martin. The Chargers won last week. Before then, they had lost 3 in a row. And while you're right about the locker room being lost, I just don't have a ton of confidence in Denver. I don't. I think a lot of that 4-game winning streak, or even it was longer than that. Yeah, it was longer than that. In that winning streak, Martin, I think there was some fluky wins here and there. Now that Chiefs win was definitely outright. Don't get me wrong, but you win 1 point in Minnesota, 2 points at Buffalo. Now, big win against Cleveland, but that defense is starting to give up a little bit, really starting to gash here late in the year. But I'm going to go with the Chargers here. I think Herbert has some pride. Herbert puts up great individual numbers, regardless of the chaos that's going around him. So by that reasoning, and probably that reasoning only, I'm going to go with Los Angeles. On now to the Eagles and the Cowboys, Martin. Perhaps the game of the week. This is a Sunday nighter. Dallas is favored.
Yeah, I know this is the game of the week for a certain man in California that drove off Shannon Sharp from possibly the greatest sports talk show in history. I wish he didn't do that so that they could keep going and keep doing what they were doing. But nonetheless, he's on First Take talking about grape seeds and oil seeds and all types of mustard seeds and whatnot about Justin Timberlake and Crying Me a River. So with that being said, I'm going to join that man on the East Coast who drove away the greatest sports show of all time. The reason why is because the Eagles are 0-2 in their last 2 games going into that stadium down in Texas and playing the Star Spangled Banner of that team and the Cowboys. If the Cowboys can stay out of trouble and not turn the ball over, then they can win this game. The Eagles feel like, to me, are wounded. They're hurt. They got embarrassed in front of their fan base. Yes, it might be coming for some revenge. But their defense has some issues, and their offensive concepts have issues as well. If you're back there for 5-6 seconds and you still can't find anybody open, then either the defense is really good or you just can't pass the ball. It's either or. And I don't know what's going on with the Eagles. They've been up and down with their offense all year. I'm taking Cowboys. I'm riding with this 2-0 win streak they have over the Eagles back-to-back years. It was a fun game last year. It was really close. It was up and down, a lot of scoring. But at the end of the day, if you're getting into a high-scoring game with Dallas, I'll choose Dallas every single time because they know how to keep competitive in these high-scoring games. We saw last week with Thursday. They came back to win that game. It was high-scoring. Give me another high-scoring game here. Give me the Cowboys.
Yeah, Martin, this is the point in the podcast here, right, where we really start to disagree. I'm going to go with the Eagles here in a bounce-back win. The Eagles just got embarrassed, Martin. The Eagles are going to be pissed. The Eagles are going to be mad. Whatever his name, their head of security, I think in some way, shape, or form or fashion is going to motivate them this week. And I'm going to go with the Birds to get this one done over the boys. Martin, Cowboys are on a 4-game win streak. Winning 5 in a row is just so tough here in the NFL. They gave up 35 points to Geno Smith, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and DK Metcalf running wild last week. You can't give up that many. You can't do that again to Jalen Hurts and this Eagles team that soaks up the clock a lot more. Don't get me wrong, the Cowboys defense is one of the best in the NFC, but at some points the Eagles is, especially that front line. I know the secondary can be questionable, but Martin, I think there's just some aura about the Eagles. The Cowboys know it. Dak Prescott knows it in the back of his head. And if there is a father and son in this rivalry, the Eagles are the Cowboys' daddies right now for this generation. So I'm going to go with Philadelphia to get it done over the boys to kind of let them know, hey, nice season you're having there. Don't forget who we are. Packers at the Giants. Green Bay -6.
Yeah, I want to first touch on something. Southern Canada fans need to calm down for a second. I get it. 3 games in a row. I get it. That's a good stretch. But Jacob, what if I told you that they've only played one legitimate team this year? What if I told you they've only played one team that's been a true playoff team? Yes, I know the Kansas City Chiefs are a playoff team. Yes, I know they got to win over the Lions as well. But most of their wins have come against really average or bad teams. They've won against the Saints. They won against the Chargers. They won against the Bears. They won against the Vikings. They won against the Rams. They won against teams that either didn't have a quarterback or didn't have their offensive scheme right or didn't have their normalcy to what they are. And because Southern Canada fans want to believe that Jordan Love is the next great quarterback, let them believe in that fantasy. That doesn't bother me at all. They have beaten one good team in the last 3 weeks. I will give that to the Kansas City Chiefs. They beat a team that wasn't prepared on Thanksgiving morning, and they beat another team, that's the Chargers, because they hired a D3 defensive coordinator as their head coach. It's not my fault that those decisions were made. Nonetheless, Southern Canada will beat New York. They will win this game, but this means nothing in the bright spot for Southern Canada. They're eating up their own stuff. Let them eat up their own stuff. All they do is eat cheese up there anyway, so let them go cheese crazy for all I care. They'll get another lucky win, but all their wins this season have been off of luck and bad coaching. And that's not something to take to the bank and thinking you have an all-pro, historic, another great quarterback. Don't get me started, Southern Canada. You're not there yet, but nonetheless, they'll win this game.
Martin's Chicago through and through in his bitter rivalry with Green Bay, as he calls them, Southern Canada, is really coming out to show. But how are you going to pick against Tommy DeVito? How are you going to pick against DeVito? Tommy, look at him. 2-game win streak. How are you going to pick? Martin, Green Bay's won 4 out of their last 5. But look at their opponents. Kansas City, Detroit. That Rams win is looking better by the day. The Chargers, who at least have Herbert, close loss in a stink fest to the Steelers. Martin, Green Bay is better than I expected them to be, and that's what I just have to say. This is going to be a Monday night doubleheader that makes you want to rip your eyes out. I don't know why they chose these games of all of them. Look at some of the slate games this week. I mean, I don't know, Martin. I'm going to go with Green Bay, though, because it's New York and it's Tommy DeVito. How are you going to pick against Tommy DeVito? No, we're going to go with Green Bay to get this one done as well. On to the Titans and the Dolphins, who are a 2-touchdown favorite.
Yeah, I won't waste time with this. It'll be the Dolphins. It's the truth about the Dolphins. They beat up on really bad teams, and they did that the week prior against the Commanders, who have a week off and can rest their bodies from being completely and utterly destroyed by 5 touchdowns in front of their fan base. the Titans will feel that same pain. I give credit to Will Levis. He is a fighter. He is playing with some heart. He is trying to get the Titans in a right direction. I give him all the credit for that because people doubted him when he came out of college. Um, I did as well. I'll be the first to admit it. But it's not going to be enough to defeat the Dolphins. The Dolphins are on a high ride. They will defeat these Titans very easily. Dolphins will win this. We're just going to have to see how far Tyree goes. Will he finally crack 200 yards in a week? This might be the week to do it. This might be the week that he does it. We'll just see because it's going to be another historic night for the Dolphins.
Martin, the Dolphins have done well when they've been, clear favorites against other teams. They really they really mopped up some teams this year. A la 70 to 20, a 50 burger in 2023. Not in the Stone Age. Tyreek Hill's been a big reason why, Martin. I think this is yet another game where you got to have Tyreek Hill go off. Now, this is Mike Vrabel. This is a respectable Titans, defense somewhat. And I think the pride's going to kick in, Martin, and they might triple team Tyreek Hill. They might do that. But that's going to open up the running lanes for Mostert. Jalen Waddle could go berserk. I think Gesicki's hurt. Whoever's there's at tight end could have a big day. And of course, Devon Achane. If this guy can stay healthy, man, he can really put on the burners as well. Martin, we're going to roll with the Dolphins as well here. 2 for 2. As for the bye teams, I don't have much to say. The Commanders, the Cardinals, both their seasons are a wash. At this point, maybe you're just thinking about getting the best pick possible. Sam Howell, while he, is at the top of the league when it comes to passing yards, he definitely makes some bad decisions, for sure. Kyler Murray, while he's promising, he's not enough to turn around a franchise like the Cardinals, and they could keep picking quarterback after quarterback, and we may never see the Cardinals turn around unless, their culture from within really starts to change. So, Merton, if you have any comments on the bye teams, go ahead and give them.
Commanders and Cardinals. The Commies need a week off after again getting burned for 5 touchdowns against the Dolphins. Reports are Eric Bieniemy is getting some interest from teams of how, yes, the offense hasn't done completely great. Again, Terry McLaurin coming out saying, I just ran cardio. I didn't really get any catches. He was only targeted 3 times. So maybe Eric Bieniemy is not doing so great, but there have been moments where Eric Bieniemy has been able to get this offense to somewhat half of what the Chiefs did. And I give him credit for doing what he's doing with. To the Cardinals, offensively, they're not lost. Obviously, they had a great week against the Pittsburgh Steelers and had a great offensive game plan. Their defense is suspect. They have days where it looks like they figured out their coverages and have figured out a way to keep the quarterback contained and control a running game. But then there's weeks where they just utterly look like they don't want to be on the field. And that's kind of the disappointing part for Kyler is if he's putting all this energy to come back and the Cardinals are not doing anything to get better on the defensive side to keep games competitive, you can't expect Kyler Murray to pull off some upset wins or pull off some miracle wins either way if he doesn't have anything to compete with, really. And maybe they'll address that in the draft. Maybe they'll address that in free agency later in the year. But these both teams need weeks off and time to rest and try to get their game plans together. They're not terrible teams. They're just bad teams that just need a week off.
So that is the Coin Flip Podcast Week 14 predictions, Week 13 reaction. I think I said that wrong on my last video, Martin. But that is it. So if you made it to the end of this video, once again, let us know your lock of the week down in the comments. Let us know if you disagreed, crazy disagreement with any one of our picks. I know we've really started to kind of agree more and more here, as the podcast has gone on. Martin, I think back to our early weeks, we almost, faded each other with almost every pick in the Sunday slate. But it's looking like we're starting to really see eye to eye here, and the records are starting to even out on the season. So we will see what happens in week 14. That's the Coin Flip Podcast. Jacob Zimmerman, Martin Kelly. We'll see you back here next week. Have yourself a good one.
Peace.